if I were to title this, it's Walk This Way. So first of all, I wanted to just help us think about what it looks like to walk the path together. And of course, I'm going to be speaking to this in a moment. But I first just wanted you to think about those situations where you might be looking for directions. If you've ever gone to a store, maybe you walked into Canadian Tire and you wanted that little thing, and you've had maybe two extremes of the experience. You found somebody, and they said, over there. Or the other extreme, and this is the one that I really like, is when they say, follow me. And they walk with you to find what it is you're looking for. And then they stay there, and they find it with you. They look at what maybe the broken thing that you brought in, maybe it's a plumbing part or something like that. And success. That is a very positive experience. If when I walk out of the store and Google asks me how my experience was, I would give that 5 stars. I'd like for us to think about walking with one another, and I'd also like to think about what it looks like to follow Jesus in that context. There's a reason why I started with that story. Because if I started with the line, we're going to talk about being a disciple, or we're going to talk about responding to the call that Jesus has for us when he says, follow me. Because for me, over the whatever years it's been, 57, 58 years of being in the church, and then as I grew up, this is neither right or wrong, but I would sit in a service and a missionary would come, and I would hear about how they sold everything and went to the mission field and lived in a grass hut or what have you, the circumstances and the environment and so forth. And while that's admirable, and while God calls us, certain people, into that, and if he's calling you, do not say no, say yes. But for a lot of us, he's just calling us into walking the path with him and one another. I want us to just think about things in a more realistic way and certainly a more day-to-day way. Follow me as I follow Christ. That's really what I wanted us to just think. I didn't want that message to get lost. In fact, I want that message to be even deeper. This walking the path together looks very much like these 3 words: belong, believe, behave. Some steps as we invite people that we are in our community with, people who are along our path, as we invite them, come follow Jesus as I follow Jesus. I want to also, and I'm going to come back to this again, is that I feel that to the detriment of the church in North America, we've often flipped these things around in terms of progression, and that is that often we want to invite people to church, and then we want them to behave a certain way. So there's some expectations when we invite them into that type of gathering. Then we want them to believe, we want them to think a certain way, and then when they pass the test, that's when we want them to feel like they belong. Let's take a look at that together. In Luke 19, if you're following along, verse 1, Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through. A man was there by the name of Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was wealthy. He wanted to see who Jesus was, but because he was short, he could not see over the crowd. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore fig tree to see him, since Jesus was coming that way. Zacchaeus was a chief tax collector and was wealthy. Did this make him a popular person? He wasn't necessarily one that they would seek out to want to be a disciple. Did he need to meet up with Jesus? Absolutely, right? If you were to make a list of checkpoints of who you would be looking for to join the team, he was not one of them because he was not well received in his community. So when Jesus reached the spot, he looked up and said to him, this is verse 5, "Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I must stay at your house today." I don't know if it's another translation. "I'm going to have tea with you." Is that in the song or in the storybooks? But I'm going to have tea with you. And so he came down at once and welcomed him gladly. All the people saw this and began to mutter, "He has gone to the guest of a sinner." But Zacchaeus stood up and said to the Lord, "Look, Lord, here and now I give half of my possessions to the poor, and if I have cheated anybody out of anything, I will pay back 4 times the amount." Jesus said to him, "Today salvation has come to this house, because this man too is a son of Abraham, for the Son of Man came to seek and save the lost." If we look in this progression, in these into these words of how we see Jesus interacting, I'm going to just ask you these questions and then we're going to look at the scripture again. In what order did he have Zacchaeus kind of meet the mark, so to speak? What I would suggest that how we see Jesus interacting is, first of all, people always felt like they belonged. And so then their defenses drop. They could then place some trust in Jesus. And whatever it was that was standing in the way, now they were open to what's next. And because of that, and then now being able to enter into interaction with Jesus, they began to believe. His hunger was being satiated because now he got to see this person. Now, why was he hungry is what I'm wondering. And the answer that I kind of come back to is that he had heard in verse 7, he's gone to be with the guest of sinners. I think Zacchaeus knew, hey, this reputation of this guy has preceded him to the point where I want to see who this guy is, that maybe I even could be accepted by him. He wasn't just a casual observer. He was very deliberate and resourceful in getting up ahead, and he climbed the tree so that he could see this guy. He just wanted to catch a glimpse of him. And I'm kind of emotional when I think about the interaction of thinking of Jesus stopping in his tracks, and it was like he knew him all along. "Zacchaeus, come on down from there. I'm going to go to your house today." We fast forward from "I'm coming to your house," and then this comment of people muttering as this all happens. So Jesus stops what he's doing, and now he's in Zacchaeus' home, if you read between the lines, literally. And then in verse 8, we hear Zacchaeus' response. And I would dare say that is the belief. And I would just maybe pause there, and I don't know if you're thinking about transformation, but that when we talk about that, I would say the one thing that we keep on coming back to when we're praying as a leadership team and is we're desiring transformation. And this interaction, when Zacchaeus says, you know, we go back to where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. The one thing that we probably know about Zacchaeus that he had going for him was his wealth. If he could buy friends, he would have done so, but he was probably despised by most of all of society. In fact, he was a chief tax collector, so he might have even been despised by his competitors, those that were under him. He was a lonely man, and all he had going for him was his wealth. And what is his response to Jesus? I'll let you answer that question.
Yeah, I guess what strikes me is just that idea of being a very lonely man, isolated, ostracized, outcast from his society for whatever reasons. And yet, when Jesus comes, he delivers. I like how it says it here, I must stay at your house today. I must. This appointment is for you. I have come here for you. And then just speaks to the power of belonging. Like what a hunger that Zacchaeus had, and then when you see the other two, to use these words, believe and behave, we know that Zacchaeus believed because his behavior was transformed. And it's so short. Sometimes you have to color in between the lines a little bit in the Bible because there's three verses, and the entire thing has happened, and you blinked and you missed it. Right? Zacchaeus, come down, I must stay at your house. So he came down, and we went to his house. And then verse 7, all the people saw this and began to mutter, he's gone to be the guest of a sinner. And then transformation, but Zacchaeus stood up. So what a lunch meeting. Like, we don't know what they said, but something, because he stands up. Here and now, I give half my possessions to the poor, and if I have cheated anyone, I'll pay back 4 times. I will make restitution. Like, wow. That's quite a change in behavior, but it didn't start with that. Jesus didn't say, if you give half your possessions to the poor, and you pay back 4 times what you've cheated anybody, then I'll come and have lunch with you, and I'll teach you how to believe. He didn't say that. And actually, it's even more simple because it's a natural outpouring. It's a natural progression to say when we create community that allows people to belong, they will experience Jesus because he lives within us. And so they'll encounter Jesus as they encounter our community, and behavioral changes will happen. It's not to say that you never have to address anything. I mean, we have other examples of that in the New Testament too. But that regenerative life of the Spirit of God that lives within a believer, I mean, it starts, he's faithful to do that work. And you can see here, and it's a short passage, but Luke is like, boom, this happens so fast. So I think it's a great example of these 3 things.
And Jesus is affirming it with, there's just some profound statements there. Salvation has come, and it's like, I think Zacchaeus kind of forsook his roots, and he was brought back into the fold. It was like, if ever there's a statement of belonging, I think, and we could tangent. As you were talking, I was just thinking about, if you want to know what this transformation looked like, it reminds me of the inspiration, if you saw it in film or in literature, was Christmas morning for Ebenezer Scrooge. I'm giddy like a schoolboy. And it almost seems like Zacchaeus is so impulsive with this, but it really was heartfelt, to the point where he was going like I'm going to give back, I'm going to give 4 full, like he just really gets caught up in it. It's cool. I'm asking the question again, what does this mean for us today? And I also wrote down these 2 lines that I feel can be transformational. So it's a little bit of the response to the belong, believe, behave progression of where the way we walk the path, the way we live, the way we are more in tune with Jesus, and we are being shaped by him and being discipled by him and one another, is that, first of all, we understand who we are. So our identity is in him. Our righteousness is in him. We can't be good enough to earn his love. We are offered his love by grace. So first of all, understanding who we are, if I would tag on in him, and what we do. So that what we do is a response to that, and we don't flip those things around. Often for those of us who have a career or work, even for those of us that have a vocation of, say, a mother or grandmother or dad or a grandfather or what have you, a lot of people are asking me who I am or about me, and I'd like to be talking about being a new grandfather. But often when we are in a new group and people ask us, what do they often ask us? What do you do? Right? And so that's kind of ingrained in our society that our identity is in our career or our vocation or that sort of thing. And that, I think, sometimes permeates what it looks like to be a follower of Jesus. And again, if I can ask you to just start thinking about things a little bit of a different way, I'd like for you to be thinking about when you think about being a follower of Jesus, first of all, know who you are. Called, equipped, and your worthiness is by his grace. And first of all, you belong. That's why Jesus calls you. And if we look at an example, we can look at this a little bit more deeper. As he called these disciples, these guys were not necessarily the cream of the crop or he didn't call those religious leaders, although some of them were, tagging along for the ride. But, he called the ordinary guy, fishermen. He called passionate guys. He called, he called Judas. He was one of the called, one of the chosen. And we see this time and time again. And all he asked, come follow me. Come walk the path with me. And so what does transformation look like? Kind of prompted with the follow-up question, who is the transformer? Who is the redeemer? And in all of these stories, it's not the message or the words. It's not one of the disciples. It's Jesus. It's the encounter with Jesus that transforms. Belong first. And what a wonderful message as we invite people. This is what has been transformational for me, if I can use that word in this, as I think about, it's moved me from the thought that I invite people to church to, I don't say it, come walk the path with me, but I'm able to invite people in to doing life with me in refuel. And it's as simple as putting my feet under the same table and eating together, and then what comes next? The conversations, the getting to know one another. And I just commend, the simple brilliance of setting aside the need to go deeper into emotionally healthy discipleship or a book or Bible study or that sort of thing, to saying, no. What we probably need right now is just to go deeper with one another. And of course, we're doing that in the context of what it looks like to call one another into walking the path with Jesus and walking together as we walk the path with Jesus in his Spirit.